Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys podcast. My name's Nova Gibson and I am your host. My area of expertise is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic relationships. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service, and I'm also the author of Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything from the initial pink cloud you find yourself on at the start through to the horrific discard and the powerful trauma bond that keeps you hooked. So take your imaginary seat on the roller coaster that is narcissistic abuse, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. How do you know if it's narcissistic abuse? How do you know it's that type of abuse and not some other type of abuse? Like, what's the difference? Well, guys, I think most people ask me that question when they come to see me in my practice because they want to know if this person can change. There's the hope of this loved one, whether it's a partner, a spouse, or a parent or a friend. They want to know if this person can go back to being the person that made them feel so good those other times. And if they're a narcissist with all the research they've done, well, that would mean that they can't change. So to begin with, let's look at what narcissistic abuse is. Okay, so to put it in a nutshell, narcissistic abuse is the abuse that you endure when it is inflicted by a narcissist. And how do you know that you're dealing with a narcissist? Well, 99.9% of the time, it's going to come from your research, from the victim's research. You're most probably never going to get a diagnosis. Some people do, but it's nearly impossible to get a diagnosis simply because narcissists don't believe there's anything wrong with themselves. So they're not going to walk in to a therapist's office and say, hey, I really need help with my narcissism. It's everyone around the narcissist who sees themselves in therapy. So when you start researching why, because this relationship is confusing, this person is making you feel awful, and you don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, why they're treating you this way, because you don't deserve it. And of course, they're gaslighting you the entire time. So you're trying to understand what is going on in this toxic relationship. So you start researching. Perhaps it's someone else who has mentioned that word narcissist, or maybe you've just started putting the behaviours of your loved one into Google, and all of a sudden up pops that word, narcissist. And then you start reading more and you start watching video after video, and it all makes sense. The bells and whistles are going off in your head as you finally have a label for it. Whilst you're researching, you will find most probably the DSM definition and diagnostic traits of the narcissist, which are things like a lack of empathy, a sense of entitlement, a sense of superiority and grandiosity, and a complete disregard for anyone else's feelings. They engage in exploitative behaviors for their own gain, etc., etc. And when you have these 9 traits and you only have to meet 5 of those traits, it's then that most victims will be able to go, oh my goodness, that's who I've been dealing with. But those 9 traits are really just the basic. It's like when you build a house and you've got the slab poured and you've got, the very, very basic structure there so that you can start to, fill it in with walls and a roof and eventually all the other stuff like your furniture. Those 9 traits are the basic outline. This is what I believe. And it's when you really start researching and you look at other people's cases and you read their stories and you watch more videos, you understand that it's the behaviours that align with those 9 traits that are the same from relationship to relationship. It's like they all went to the same school for narcissists. They all got the same textbook and they all engage in these same toxic, abusive strategies like triangulation, gaslighting, projection, the use of smear campaigns and blame shifting, and just the very covert, insidious nature of the abuse that is so hard to articulate to others who have not been through it. It's those behaviors that really give you a sense of who you have been in a relationship, rather than this psychological Bible, the DSM-5, which has these basic 9 traits, which anyone can read, that just give you, the outline and give you something to start with. So many of my beautiful clients who come to see me in my practice, by the way, guys, if you'd like to have a one-on-one Zoom counseling session with me, no matter where you are in the world, just see my website in the description. So many of them say to me, do you think they're a narcissist, Nova? And what I say to that is, I don't diagnose, okay? But the fact is you are highly unlikely to get a diagnosis. So you have got to trust your instincts, okay? The behaviors that you're describing to me certainly sound narcissistic, but you've got to trust your instincts. I think the biggest thing to remember when you're ticking all of those boxes and you're going, yes, 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 and they're all describing a narcissist to you, what you've got to really think about is the fact that those abusive, toxic behaviors, the cycles of abusive behavior, are consistent patterns of behavior over space and time. And I think that's the real key thing to cling on to, is that we all have bad days when we're not the person we really would like to be. We feel bad about our behavior, and that's the difference between you and a narcissist. The difference is that you can reflect. A narcissist will never reflect on their behavior. It is always someone else's fault. But you and I, we can reflect on our behavior, our bad behavior, on an isolated day, that's when we're engaging in behavior that's outside of our character. And we can go, oh, I really didn't like that. You know what? I'm not proud of myself. And I'm going to go back and try and make amends. And hopefully that loved one will forgive me. So the other thing to remember is that you don't start to research this loved one's behavior unless this relationship is toxic. You don't tend to research someone's behavior when you're in a healthy relationship. That should be one of the biggest red flags you will ever get. So you're researching their behavior. You're seeing that they're ticking all of the boxes, and you realize that what they're doing to you and how it's making you feel, these behaviors are not the isolated incidents of someone just having a bad day. And when you start to compare your story, your abuse, to the stories of other victims, and you see the similarities in the covert nature of the abuse, that's where you can start to realize that this is narcissistic abuse that you are enduring. The strategies that the narcissist uses are textbook. I talk a lot about these strategies in my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. So look out for that, guys. But the strategies they use to abuse that I was mentioning earlier, they are textbook, and they can be seen from one relationship to the next. It doesn't matter whether it's a parent or it's a partner. The basics of their abusive, covert strategies are textbook. So I guess what I'm saying in the end is that short of a formal diagnosis, which you'll rarely get unless it's court ordered, because they are just not going to put their hand up for a diagnosis. That would wound their ego. That would mean they would be less than perfect. So short of that formal diagnosis, you are the expert in your trauma, and the narcissist conditioned you to not trust your instincts. So most people, by the time they come to see me, they have done mountains of research and they have it coming out of their ears. And many of them are still at that stage where they're asking me, do you think they're a narcissist, Nova? And I will reiterate that it's impossible to say that. It would be unethical of me to say that. But what I will say is that I think you're answering your own question in that all the research you're describing to me, what does it describe? Okay, it describes a narcissist, and these behaviors are consistent over time and space. Then there's your answer. And in the end, okay, this is where I don't want you to get too hung up on the name. In the end, a diagnosis is just a label, okay? It's a label that we give to a set of symptoms or traits so that we know how to treat that person. So we know what we're dealing with, okay? So if even after all of the research that you've done, and this is okay, it can take a long time to really be able to put that label on your abuser, simply because many victims are still at that stage where they think that by some magic occurrence their abuser will change back to the nice person they were pretending to be. But in the end, it's just a label. So if you're not ready yet to label them as a narcissist, then label them as toxic. This person is your abuser. If they are doing this to you over and over and over again, and it does not matter if they have been a victim at some stage, because victims, most victims, 99% of victims would never dream of putting anyone else through what they have endured, because they have empathy, and that would just be something that was just incomprehensible to them. But a narcissist will use their past trauma. They'll also lie about it and make it up. They will use any past trauma as an excuse. It is not an excuse. And you cannot fix them and you cannot change them. So, yeah, if you're still worried that they may not be a narcissist, then I want you to leave anyway, because if they aren't a narcissist, then the chances are they would be willing to engage in therapy that is ongoing. It would have to be ongoing for a long time, and that knowing that they wouldn't want to lose the love of their life, they would do everything it would take to keep you in their life and to get better, and to believe that they could win your trust back. So if they're not a narcissist, I want you to leave anyway. I want you to get on with your healing. And when you're looking at this relationship from a distance and you can get more perspective without being in the environment that's tainting your vision and making you sick, and you can make an informed decision without your abuser manipulating you, then you will be able to reevaluate. And if they're still there, then you will know that you made the right decision by leaving and healing. And it proved the best thing to do, because here they are. They've done what they need to do. They're a completely changed person. They've gone to therapy for years, and you both live happily ever after. But will that happen? Most probably not. Or you wouldn't be researching their behavior. But that's the way I want you to think about it, because it is not your job to endure their abuse because there might be something wrong with them. It is your job to leave and to heal. And if they really are there for you, then they'll do what it takes. But your number one job has got to be healing. No one has the right to abuse you. So to summarize, how do you know if it's narcissistic abuse? Well, narcissistic abuse, again, is the abuse that you suffer that is inflicted on you over an extended period of time, covertly, the chipping away of your boundaries and the dismantling of your personality over time, so that in the end there is left a person whom they can control and abuse. It's a slow process, and your boundaries end up shot. Your threshold for abuse goes through the roof, and your threshold for respect is on the floor, and you can't fall off the floor. So that's my version of narcissistic abuse. So when you're doing your research, guys, trust your instincts, because the chances of you getting a diagnosis are very, very slim. And also keep in mind that you will find it very difficult to articulate this abuse to others who have not walked in your shoes. So make sure you find the right people to talk to, and that includes counselors. Any counselor, some counseling is not always better than no counselor, and you need to talk to the right people. But most of all, you need to trust yourself again, because you are the expert in your trauma. You are the expert in your narcissistic abuse. And that brings us to the end of another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. I hope that's clarified things a little for you guys. You've got to trust your instincts, because narcissistic abuse syndrome, or should I say narcissistic victim syndrome, NVS, is not yet recognized in the DSM. So you guys are the experts in your trauma. But in saying that, there's going to be little support out there from people who have not been through it. So trust your own judgment, and remember, in the end, it's a label. And don't forget also, if you'd like to have a one-on-one counseling session with me, a Zoom counseling session, just see my website in the description. And of course, look out for my best-selling book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, available in Audible and Kindle as well. You can find that link in the description. Follow me on my other platforms. And guys, if you'd like to know how to support the channel, then please review and leave a rating. That's the best way you can help the channel out to get going in the algorithm. On that note, it's bye from me for now. Until tomorrow's episode, remember, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of so much more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.